want to bring in Wright, Thompson, senior writer for ESPN.com. Wrote a terrific story this week on Johnny Manziel and his family and how he's handling the pressure of being a celebrity at College Station. But Wright, before I get to that, I want to get your reaction to the Riley Cooper story and how the Eagles handled it, and do you think the punishment fit the crime?
I mean, look, I don't want to get on a moral high horse, and I'm not a big fan of sort of the modern trend of faux rage, but some things are just truly despicable. And, I mean, I don't think there is a punishment strong enough for doing that because, you know, what people say when they don't think someone's watching, to me, regardless of the public apology later, is some sort of window into something. And it was, I don't know, man. I thought that was unbelievably disgusting and frightening and just, you know, I mean, I think that they reacted appropriately. I would not have been upset if they'd have cut him. I mean, I don't think there's anything that's too far for something like that. Just has no place in this society.
If Riley Cooper was playing in the SEC, what would the reaction be?
The exact same.
In the locker room, by the team, do you think it would have fans?
Yes. I mean, I just think that, like, that, you know, the idea that that would somehow be tolerated somewhere else is ludicrous. I mean, you know, I'm standing right now in Oxford, Mississippi on my porch, and, you know, everyone I've talked to about it is just sort of shocked and disgusted.
He's Wright Thompson, senior writer for ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine. Wright, I want to talk about your Manziel story. And the first thing I want to ask you is, as a reporter as well, I'm always fascinated by how the access comes about. Can you take us behind the scenes into how this story, the genesis of this story, and how you first got access to Johnny Manziel for this?
I started writing Texas A&M, I don't know, in February. I mean, because the thing that I was interested in is ultimately what the story was about. I was looking yesterday at my initial email, and it's basically like this very strange thing is happening to him, and I think it should be documented about what this looks like and feels like because, you know, trying to think of a good analogy, because of the way that I think college sports has been commodified and monetized and how that grows every year. I mean, the world Johnny Manziel lives in is far different than the world even Tim Tebow lived in. And so, you know, it's like when the first people to break the sound barrier, they didn't know what that would do to a person. You know, will your bones turn to jelly? Like, honestly, it's funny now, you know, when you think that you could have flown on the Concorde over Mach 1, but people didn't know what that would do to someone. And I think that Johnny is stepping into a sort of new world of collegiate celebrity that he is the first person into. It's exacerbated by his own bad decisions, obviously. And so the question is, what does that look like? That's what I wanted to write about. And the question that I came out of it with is just this some weird perfect storm of a folk hero and, you know, a hungry media mechanism, or is this the new normal?
When you set out to write this story, were you looking to do a story about how Johnny Manziel's family was, or taking it from his family's point of view and then include Johnny into the story? Was it about Johnny and it sort of evolved into something about him and his family?
You know, I just wanted to go see what his world was like. I mean, I didn't classify it as a story about Johnny or about Johnny's family, or, I mean, it was write a profile of his world, was the idea I wanted to do and what I did.
Did anything that Paul Manziel said surprise you?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, you know, here's the thing that I think people, you write a lot of stories. I've written a lot of stories. His family might be the most unflinchingly honest people I've ever been around. And so they didn't censor themselves. And he said what was on his heart. And I was sitting there, you know, with a notebook. And I think it was the exhaust of a sort of the engine of a worried father. I think, you know, I think that he was being very unplugged. And so, I mean, I wasn't surprised by what he said. I might have been surprised that he said it. But after spending a lot of time with these people, I mean, the adjective that keeps coming to me is real. You know, I mean, they just were totally unplugged.
You, in part of your story, did a fantastic job of sort of painting a picture of what Johnny's, what his body language, so of what he feels like on a day-to-day basis out there. I mean, how heavy is the head that wears the crown? I guess what I say is I mean, how much of a burden does this feel on him?
I think he feels under siege, and it's a scary thing because, when you get that famous that quickly, you make a series of little seemingly unconnected decisions because at first it's awesome. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it happens so fast, and you look up one day and everything is different, and there are many people to blame, including yourself, and sort of how you got seduced by the positive side of all of this, and you just look up and it's different, and now all of a sudden your fame or persona or whatever comes disconnected from the actual you and no longer even really needs you to exist. And then, so now Johnny Football, I mean, it's funny to me, everyone has takes on what he should do, and now we have pundits talking about whether or not his parents are good parents who they've never met, and what should Johnny do, and Johnny should do this, and it's endless. I mean, it's sort of interesting to me that I feel like I went down there and opened a brief window into this world just for a couple of days, but even a couple of days is not enough to know someone's soul. I mean, it's just like, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I just feel like, if you just hear so many takes, you start to want to throw up. Nobody has any idea what they're talking about.
If he feels under siege, like you said, Wright, why does he keep flying into the teeth of it? When I say that, there are ways he could reduce his profile, specifically with social media, maybe not doing as many things as he does, with sort of gallivanting across the country, doing stuff. Not to say any of that is wrong, but if he feels under siege, why does he keep swimming into the teeth of this?
Well, I guess those are two separate things. I mean, I don't want to speak for him. If it were me, I would feel like if I stopped doing the things I wanted to do, the things that I had done before I got famous, I would somehow be ceding the last bit of control I had over to this machine. That would feel like defeat to me. And he's obviously immature a little bit, and not a little bit, and isn't sure sort of why you can't just have the good part of fame without the bad part. And look, Twitter's awful. Twitter's a drug. I need to get off of Twitter. I mean, all Twitter exists for is for self-promotion and to give you the capability in your pocket after 2 drinks to totally self-destruct your life. And, we should all get off of Twitter. And so I don't, why can't he? Why can't anyone? I mean, I would love to cancel my Twitter account right now, and I won't do it. And so I don't know. I mean, I think that's a very difficult thing to ask someone to do.
Do the Manziels, Wright, feel that when the college football season starts that Johnny will be able to escape all this? Do they feel that's the cure for what's happening around him right now?
I think that's the structure of that is, I think, what everyone is just praying to get to. Let's just play games. And then the punditry can be about his play. I mean, because it's going to exist. There's a, amount of space that needs to be filled with information, and when there are no games being played, that information is what is Johnny doing. And I also think that from a micro standpoint in their lives and in his life, the structure is going to be a godsend. And, doing something that he's great at, that he gets positive reinforcement for, is going to be very, very helpful. I mean, I think everyone's just ready for the season to begin.
One of the points you make in the story, Wright, talking to Wright Thompson, senior writer for ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine, is that it was a very enlightening quote and an almost scary quote from Paul Manziel, his father, is that, and I'm paraphrasing here, that if Johnny wound up in jail, he'd feel that jail was less pressure than what he goes through on a daily basis. I mean, is he being flippant about that, or was he being serious about that?
I think he's being serious about that. I think that because if you're a freshman in college, all you do is watch SportsCenter, play video games, what's the joke? Video games, SportsCenter, Bud Light, and Marlboro Lights in a box. You know what I mean? That's college. And so I think that, put it this way, after the first, Texas A&M game, Johnny ran home from the stadium and no one bothered him. And after the last Texas A&M home game, the College Station police had to drive him to sort of get through the crush of people. And I don't think people stop to consider how a change that dramatic and that quick would impact their own lives. I mean, I don't know how I would handle it. I mean, I don't think anyone knows.
Is this Johnny's last year at Texas A&M, no matter what?
I would bet any amount of money that it is.
Just even if he has a subpar year, he just needs to get out.
I mean, if it were me, I'd want to get out. Mm-hmm. It's just toxic. I mean, what you know, it doesn't really make, you know, I don't see why it would make sense to stay there. And, you know, I think that, you know, no one really talks about it, but just the sort of specter of the NCAA hangs over everything. I mean, I got sort of a primer in NCAA rules while watching this, and you just realize how constantly vigilant you have to be to protect yourself against a sort of fundamentally, intellectually dishonest enterprise that needs to twist everyone into the shape of its lie. Like, for instance, I could sign, if I'm Johnny Manziel, I can sign an autograph and give it to, say, Boone Pickens, who's a billionaire, and that's fine. But if I sign an autograph for a lifelong friend who then sells it at their church's charity auction to benefit a parishioner with cancer, that's an NCAA violation. And, like, so you just constantly have to be on guard against a whole series of sort of inane rules to protect his eligibility. And, I mean, again, this is me talking, but if I were him and his family, that would feel exhausting.
Well, Wright, it's a terrific story as usual from you. I've become a big fan of your work. Thanks for taking a couple of times to come on the show.
Anytime. Thank you.
That's Wright Thompson, senior writer for ESPN.com and ESPN the magazine. You can read his story on Johnny Manziel, which is online right now. Terrific piece that gets inside not just Johnny Manziel, but Johnny Manziel's family and their fears about the future of Manziel.